Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about the basics of cell function. I know it's kind of a boring name, but it's so important. Really why it's important? That's all we are. We are cells. We're 75 trillion cells working together. So what do I mean by that? Very simply put, you have a whole bunch of cells. That's what you are consisted of. You put a whole bunch of cells together, they make up tissue. You put a whole bunch of tissues together, you get what's called an organ. So you put these organs together, you get a system, and then finally put the whole systems together, you get what we are, a human being. So there's many different types of cells. There are muscle cells, bone cells, nerve cells, skin cells, immune cells, you name it. But they all pretty much look and act the same. So my belief system is that if we understand what a cell needs and how it functions, we understand how as a whole we function and how we can be healthy. Hope that makes sense. So let's get into it right now. When you look at a cell, it needs a few things in order to be healthy. The first thing you need are nutrients, right? This is why we eat food. So you need oxygen, which you get through breathing. You need hormones, you need minerals, you need vitamins, you need carbohydrates, proteins, things like that. Where we get all of those things is actually through our diet. What we put into our system is what we're made of. And it's very important to understand this. Oxygen, hormones, minerals, vitamins, carbohydrates, proteins, they're all delivered by the blood. That's how important the blood system is. It's extremely important that blood system stay clean. You also need waste removal. So all of these nutrients actually go inside of the cell and they perform chemical reactions. And as a result of a chemical reaction, and we'll show you an example of this later, you end up getting byproducts that some of them are very acidic, right? We want acids out of the body. Acids are very binding, very painful, really corrosive, especially to proteins. So our body needs a way to get rid of all this waste, and that's done through something called our lymphatic system. So we need a good waste removal system or a clean lymphatic system. And then finally, you need consciousness, meaning this. You can put all the food in the world inside of a dead person, but nothing happens to it, right? We forget that there's a consciousness or a life energy inside of us that animates every cell and stirs it into creation. So, what carries this information and this life energy is your nerve system. It's generated in your brainstem and it sends energy or this life energy down the spinal cord, out the nerves to every single cell to provide consciousness to every single cell of the body. So if I cut the nerves going to my heart stops working. Everyone understands that. It's because of what's going on. That life energy is actually flowing to the heart, keeping that alive, keeping that beat steady. Okay? To give you a really good analogy, think of a cell kind of like a house. You need a couple things for the house to run smoothly. The first thing you need is a clean water supply bringing nutrition to the household. That's going to be like your blood supply. You also need a waste removal system, right? So you have a sewage system for your bathroom, and you have a garbage system for every other kind of waste to get it out of your system. And then finally, you need some power or electricity going into that house. Now imagine if you lose one of these three things, some trouble starts to happen, right? You lose your clean water supply, you're going to die. If you lose your waste removal, you're going to have garbage just packed back into your house, so pretty nasty foul smells, which will lead to disease and death. And then finally, you definitely need electric, especially in this day and age. You need power to run the whole thing. In fact, most of the water system and sewage system is run on electricity. So if you don't have that electricity, none of it works. It's the most important part. You need all three to survive. And we're living in a day and age where we have literally damage to all three systems. How do we injure these systems? Number one, the blood system. Things that make the blood system very dirty, mucousy, puts a lot your body. Your blood pH won't change too much because your body has to have it slightly alkaline, 7.2 to 7.4 pH. However, it takes a lot of energy to keep it that way if you're putting certain things in your body. This is medication. It's some of the most acid-forming stuff. It destroys your bloodstream. Meat, that includes beef, chicken, and fish. Dairy, alcohol, coffee, eggs. They all produce acids in the body, and acids lead to pain. They lead to binding. What I mean by that is clumping, so your muscle knots, tightness, bending over, stiffness, arthritis, inflammation, and it can lead to pretty much every chronic disease known to man. With the lymphatic system, we just overproduce waste over time. So pretty much we eat those foods that we're talking about, or we put medication into our system. It's creating so much acid, our lymphatic system can't even handle it. It just gets overrun. It's like producing a bewildering amount of garbage, so that the people who come take the garbage, they can't handle it. It's just way too much. So it gets backed up, backed up, backed up. Okay? As a result, it destroys the areas of your body that try to get this waste out, which are going to be your kidneys, your skin, and your colon. And it leads to more acids in the body over time. And then finally, how do we injure the nerve system? It's the subluxation, which we've talked about in previous videos. Essentially, you have the top bone of your neck, which protects your brainstem, which is generating all of the life energy for your body. When that misaligns, it strangles and chokes off that life energy into the body, and wherever that life energy was supposed to go. So let's say you put pressure on the part of the brainstem that's delivering energy to your pancreas. Well, that part of your pancreas is going to die. It needs that consciousness. Without that consciousness, you have death. So let's go a little bit more particular now. Let's talk about the cell, and actually a few very specific parts of it. There's a lot of myths about cells, or things that we were taught in school that actually aren't true. Their finding was completely wrong. A couple of things I really want to get into. Number one, what is the brain of the cell? What's the most important part of the cell? Really? What does the nucleus and the DNA do? So these are words, these are buzzwords everyone's heard about. Number three, how does the cell make energy? And then number four, what are free radicals and antioxidants? These are really important concepts to understand when we're talking about what a cell is. The brain of a cell. When I ask people, what is the brain of a cell? What is the most important part? Most people tell me it's the nucleus. But you can take the nucleus out of a cell and the cell will still survive. So it's not the nucleus. The brain of the cell, the most important part of the cell, it's actually called the membrane, the outer layer of this cell. It's actually the skin of the cell. Now, people don't realize this. When we are developing embryonically, so when I'm in my mother's uterus and I'm developing, what happens is your skin and your nerves actually come from the same tissue. So your skin can actually, of your entire body, can actually be considered an extension of your brain. It's that important to you. Your skin is so very important. It makes a tremendous amount of hormones. It's just a really important part of our body that we neglect, and we put all these chemicals on. That being said, let's take it down to a really small scale, and that we're looking at a cell. Your cell has a skin around it called your membrane. It's just as important as the skin on your body. It's your first line of defense. It provides protection and structure. Without that membrane, there's no cell. So it's very, very important. The other thing to consider is this. In order for this cell to work properly, what you need is you actually need chemicals getting into the cell, but you also need waste to be able to get out of the cell. The cell membrane actually determines what gets in and out of the cell. This is actually what the cell membrane looks like. These are it's called a bilipid layer. So you got these little balls of fats that are actually the layer of the membrane. Then you have either sugar or protein channels in here. So if you take a look at this, for example, this is either a protein, or sometimes there's a receptor like this, which is a sugar receptor. They're sticking out of the cell, the cell wall. But this cell membrane is allowing molecules to get into the cell and allowing other molecules, let's say in this thing, to come out of the cell. So without this membrane, nothing gets in, nothing gets out. So it's that important. So remember, when someone's telling you that the DNA is the most important part, it's actually the cell membrane. Now let's talk about the nucleus and the DNA. So if you look at a cell, in the middle of it, you have this round ball. It's called the nucleus. And the only importance of the nucleus is that inside of it, this is where all of your DNA is kept. So if you look at it, the nucleus holds genetic material which is called chromatin. Okay? DNA, which is essentially DNA. DNA consists of about 30,000 genes. And genes are blueprints on how to make proteins. And what's the big deal? What's a protein? Well, proteins are pretty much everything you see. When you look at a person, you're seeing protein. Protein is the structure of a person. So it's your hair, it's your nails, it's your skin. Every hormone is a protein. So they're very, very important structures. Your genes determine what proteins are made. Just to kind of show you a picture to give you a clue here, here's your double helix DNA. This right here would be a gene, a segment of DNA. You wind up this DNA by these things called histones, and this is what chromatin looks like. So this is what you actually see when you look through a microscope. And then at certain times, this chromatin will organize even more and produce what's called a chromosome. So chromosome, really, this is how you tell them apart. It's literally just a whole bunch of DNA wrapped up really tight and really organized. So here's the question. We hear this a lot now. People are saying that certain diseases are genetic in nature. So people will look for their family history with heart disease, with cancer. But when you break it down, how much of the disease is caused by your genes? 2%. So we have a whole society of people freaking out about 2% of the cause. 98% is controlled by the environment. What I mean by that is you are not your genes. You might have a gene for breast cancer, for example. You have a 98% control over that still. So it's pretty much this way. You might come with a loaded gun, but you still have to pull the trigger. Okay? And the pulling the trigger is 98% of it. So let's get into it. This is why your nucleus and DNA, the DNA, like I said before, are blueprints on how to make proteins. But here's the issue with this. Almost all of them, all of your blueprints are rolled up and archived. Meaning this, my eye and my heart have the same exact DNA to them. But they look completely different. Why that is this way. I have brown eyes. So I have a protein that is made that makes my eye brown. So my genes, I have the gene for brown eyes to make brown protein. Okay? My heart has that same gene, but it's archived, it's rolled up and turned off. My heart doesn't need to make brown eye pigmentation. I hope that makes sense. So what happens is it rolls up that blueprint and keeps it away. Okay? So you have total control. In the same way, you might have a gene to produce cancer cells, or like a breast cancer cell, for example. But most of the time, that's archived and put away. You don't need that. Your body doesn't want to express that. Only if you have certain chemicals or energetic messages telling you to unroll that blueprint. The other thing that happens is this. Your body can totally edit and change the blueprint at any time it wants to. So you might have a blueprint to make brown eyes, for example. Your body can edit it. You know, there's stories of people who have multiple personality disorder. And for example, when a different personality, their eye color will completely change. You may ask how that happens. It's because just because you have a blueprint for something doesn't mean your body can't alter the blueprint. It happens all the time. So the takeaway with it is this. Chemicals and energetic messages actually determine what blueprints are opened and how they should be edited. So picture it this way. Your genes are your blueprints, but the chemicals that come in essentially are kind of like the project managers that unroll the blueprints. energetic messages from the nervous system are actually 100 times stronger than chemical messages. So really the energy is really where it's at. But it can also be energy from a cell phone. So when you have radiation coming into you, that's going to trigger certain genes to be unrolled and certain blueprints to be made. So you should worry way more about your nervous system and the foods you put into your body rather than your genes. If you eat cheeseburgers, hot dogs, fried foods, meat, dairy, you're going to produce a whole bunch of set of blueprints. They're going to unroll them. They're going to make a whole bunch of different proteins than if you put raw fruits, raw vegetables, seeds, and teas into your body. And then finally, let's go into how a cell makes energy. Inside of a cell, you might remember these little structures called mitochondria. They're kind of like the factories that energy gets produced. And in order to make energy, we need energy for every single function of our body. It's what creates life, essentially. So we need to understand this process. I like to use this analogy of how do you make a fire. A fire is a form of energy. So in order to make fire, you need a few things. You need oxygen. Then you need some fuel, which usually we use wood, right? And then you need some kind of spark. And you put these together and you get a fire, right? The fire is the energy. You can use the energy of a fire to cook your food, for example. However, with this fire, you also have smoke that comes out. That's a byproduct, right? Okay. Same thing happens in your body. What happens is inside the mitochondria, you need a few things. You need oxygen. And then typically you need what's called glucose, which is sugar. Okay, your body prefers it. It's the easiest thing to burn. Okay, so that's our fuel. The spark are what are called enzymes and coenzymes, which are little proteins that help these chemical reactions work. You also need thyroid hormone. So if you don't have, that's why people who have hypothyroidism, where they're not making enough thyroid hormone, they have very low energy. It's because you need thyroid hormone. It actually drives oxygen into the mitochondria. So without it, you really can't make energy. Okay. You also need B vitamins in order for this to work as well. Now, B vitamins. So it's when you're talking about energy creation, you need all of these things. You need oxygen, right? You need sugar. You need enzymes, coenzymes. You need thyroid hormone, and you need B vitamins. B vitamins come from your gut. They come from the bacteria inside of you. So if you've taken antibiotics, you've killed your bacteria in your gut, you can't make energy anymore. You're going to have a very hard time. You're going to be extremely fatigued, okay? In any case, you put these three things together, you get energy. The energy we call, it's called ATP. It's a chemical energy. What ends up happening is your body actually just breaks down all of the sugar and then creates all of these structures, just rearranges all the chemicals. So you get energy in the form of ATP, but you get some byproducts too. You actually make water in the process of doing this. You make carbon dioxide, that's what we breathe out, right? But also we make these nasty little things called free radicals. And I'm sure we've all heard of free radicals before. I really want people to understand this concept though, so they understand how important this is. But essentially, whatever kind of energy you're using, if you're using clean energy, you're going to create less free radicals. If you're using processed sugars or chemicals or like proteins or things like that, you're going to create a tremendous amount of free radicals. So you want to use clean energy in the process of this. So what is a free radical? Well, let's look at the picture on this left. In here, if we're looking at a molecule now, so we're talking about really fine chemistry, you have your nucleus. And in the nucleus, you have all your protons and your neutrons. And then these little things are called electrons. And when you look at a cell, just as just reminder of chemistry, you have these electron clouds, or these electron shells that we're talking about. We want an even paired number of electrons. So you can see on the left here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that's the most balanced chemical formula you can get for a molecule. 8 electrons in the outer shell. Well, a free radical had this happen to them. Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this free radical only has 7 electrons. It's actually missing an electron. So what ends up happening is it has a positive charge. Because of that, this molecule is really unstable and it wants to steal. What it does is it actually steals electrons off of other molecules. Okay? As a result, it actually breaks down and destroys cells in your body. So if you take a look, for example, at this apple on the left, this is when it's alive. When a molecule is alive and it's healthy, it can fight these free radicals. But as soon as you lose that fight, look what happens to this apple. This is what happens when you are overrun by free radicals. Free radicals come and they just rip away all the electrons, and you get disease and destruction. So let's look at this cell down here. This is a normal cell. When you have a tremendous amount of free radicals, it overruns the cell, it destroys it, and deforms it. This is the end result. Diseased, dead cell. As a result, these are all the diseases and processes that are caused by free radicals in the body. Aging, cancer, heart attack, trauma, strokes, for example. I mean, you can name, there's pretty much every single disease known to man you can pin back to free radicals as well. Okay? What causes free radicals? Cooking foods, medicine, cigarette smoke, alcohol, herbicides, pesticides, fried foods, radiation. So when you think about the average American life, I mean, we have cooked foods every meal. The average person over 65 is on over 8 medications. You know, we still have a lot of people who smoke and drink. Herbicides and pesticides are on every single product you're buying, unless you're buying really clean organic foods. A tremendous amount of fried foods. And I mean, look at, even if you just travel at all, every time you go on an airplane you're getting radiation, but now they have all these protocols of all the radiation tools you have to go through. So you can see we have a tremendous amount of free radicals in our society today. So how do we fight against this? An antioxidant is kind of the answer to a free radical. If you count this antioxidant, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, right? 17, this antioxidant usually has more than one negative charge. And think of antioxidants, instead of being thieves, they're givers. They donate these electrons over to these free radicals to make them stable. So they have so many negative charges. So for an example, we've all heard of vitamin C. Vitamin C is an antioxidant. Vitamin C has about 5 negative charges. So vitamin C can give off 5 electrons to free radicals. It can take care of 5 free radicals at a time. Pretty impressive, right? Well, when you talk about things like glutathione or coenzyme Q10, they're in our liver. They have about 1 million negative charges they can give off. So more important than just eating the foods is actually making these things in our body. So having a healthy liver is the most important thing you can do to make antioxidants. By the way, statin medications or cholesterol meds, things like that, they actually kill the part of your liver that makes these antioxidants. So when you're taking these medications, you see, number one, they're producing free radicals, but number two, they're destroying our ability to make antioxidants. Really, antioxidants are the answer. Where do you get these and how do you clean the liver up? Pretty much your fruits are the answer. Anything you see that's brightly colored, healthy from the earth, that's what has antioxidants in it. So if we eat fruit and that's our main diet, you're going to have plenty of antioxidants. So wrapping this all up, what does it all mean? Number one, in order for a cell to function, we need to have clean blood, a lymph system, and healthy nerve foods. We do this through eating alkaline or healing foods, which are fruits, veggies, seeds, and teas. It's also achieved through upper cervical chiropractic care. It's a chiropractor who specializes in the top bone of the neck, who knows exactly how to put it back into position, no twisting, cracking, popping. Okay, very, very important to get your nervous system healthy. We've also learned genetics mean very little to overall health. So stop focusing on genes and being a victim to it. Take control. 98% of it has to do with your health of your nervous system and the foods that you eat and the environment you subject yourself to. Energy is made by the quality of food you put in your body. You also need healthy thyroid and B vitamins, which is produced by gut bacteria. Again, you're going to get this stuff through eating extremely healthy foods, having a healthy nervous system. Free radical production can be linked to every disease process. Antioxidants are the answer. This is where fruit comes in. You need to eat lots of fruit. It needs to be there. Essentially, guys, if you follow these 4 principles, what you really need to do is have a healthy nervous system, eat very clean fruits, veggies, seeds, and teas, and you have nothing to worry about. Every cell of your body is going to function correctly, and if every cell of your body functions correctly, there's absolutely no disease you could ever come down with. Your body's going to work at an optimal level. Remember, your body was created to coincide with nature. Live according to the laws of nature, and you can expect health. Again, my name is Dr. Kevin Davin. I'm at Pure Life Health Centers. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please give us a call. If you have any friends or family that want a health checkup, please let us know. We offer free consultations and exams. Love you all. Bye.